Throughout high school, I was absolutely obsessed with the Kemper. I probably talked about the Kemper at least once a week to my mom and how I planned on owning one day. All the demos I had seen of the unit online sounded amazing, and the then new idea of profiling an amp was super intriguing to me. Throughout high school, I put money into a savings account hoping that one day I could buy the Kemper when I was an adult. And that day came sooner than I thought. The day after I graduated high school, I moved to a whole new city and a whole new province. About 7 days after I moved, I saw this in the corner of one of my local music stores. This is a powered Kemper head, and it came with the gig bag, the floor controller, and the Mission Engineering expression pedal, plus thousands of dollars of paid profile packs from Michael Britt, Tone Junkie, STL, you name it. This had it. And in 2017, I paid $2,400 Canadian for this. To this day, this is the best guitar purchase I've ever made. For years, I used the Kemper religiously. It's been in every single one of my home studio setups, but for being honest, I'm not in love with it like I used to be. In the last few years, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what I like in a guitar tone. And during this process, I realized I was growing dissatisfied with my Kemper and other modelers. I realized that the main reason that I bought the Kemper was the reason why I was starting to dislike it, and that was that it had way too many options on it. Option paralysis is essentially an idea that when you have too many choices, you actually don't get anything done because you're spending too much time looking through all the choices, rather than actually just choosing something and being done. With modeling units like the Kemper, there are literally tens of thousands of profiles of different amps. You pretty much have every sound in the world at your fingertips. This is actually one of the main selling points of the Kemper, and initially why I wanted one so badly. The Kemper gave me the ability to quote-unquote demo so many different guitar amps, and I got to learn a lot about how different guitar amps sounded. While this was initially helpful for me, the more I used the Kemper, the more I found that I was just looking through menus rather than actually playing guitar and just picking a good tone. I found that for quite a few years, I spent more time scrolling through profiles, trying different sounds out, rather than actually focusing on playing my guitar and writing new music. Though I did find and use a lot of cool sounds, they weren't the sound that I was actually looking for. And I wasn't getting any closer to actually finding my own sound. I would just try out a sound for a demo, then try out another sound for another demo, and just keep doing that process over and over and over again. Doing this hindered my ability to actually create my own unique sounds on the Kemper. While I owned the Kemper, I bought my first really great tube amp, my Mesa Boogie Fillmore 50. When I tried this amp out for the first time at Long & McQuaid, it truly was that sound I had in my head. I pretty much bought the amp on the spot because I loved how it sounded so much, and I finally was able to get that sound in my head. Something that I wasn't able to do with the Kemper. I liked that it was just a tube amp and I couldn't really do anything else to it except use pedals. There weren't a million different speaker options for me, a million different preamp options. It was just the amp. Since I owned the Kemper, I decided to profile it in, but I didn't really do a great job at it, and it never really scratched that itch I had. So I kept going through different menus and experimenting with a ton of different sounds. Eventually I ran into some issues with the Fillmore and I actually had to return the amp twice. And then I bought a Friedman Rund. I owned the Friedman for a few months, and I absolutely loved it as well. But I decided to sell it because I was just getting tired of tube amps, and honestly, I regret that so much. That was the dumbest thing I could have done, my god. But I'm still pissed at myself for doing that. Once the Friedman was gone and the Mesa was gone, I didn't even have my own sound. In 2021, all my guitar tone issues came to a head. Daryl Saves Lives was going into a professional studio for the first time and recording with a professional producer for the first time. It was a really exciting time for the band, but honestly, I felt off about my guitar tone. I had sold my Fillmore 50 a few months before and had hundreds of profiles on my Kemper ready to use. The problem was that I had so many sounds on my Kemper. I didn't really have one sound in particular that I really loved and wanted to use. When I brought the Kemper in to record scratch tracks, they just didn't sound good because I honestly didn't know how to pick the right profile to fit the song. So the producer decided that we'd use real amps for this session. In that moment, I definitely felt a sense of regret selling my Fillmore 50. This was going to be the first time I had a professional producer record my guitar, and I didn't even have my own amp to record. All my guitar heroes use a studio to capture their true guitar sound, and I felt that I didn't really have my own true guitar sound. I was really wondering at that moment if surfing through all those menus for all those years was actually worth it. During that session, the producer plugged me into whatever amps he thought would be good for the song. I pretty much had no input on how my guitar should sound. And honestly, I was okay with that because I wanted to learn how different amps sounded.
In fact, I've never even stepped foot in this.
Going into this session, I had trained my ear to only like vintage 30 sounds, so when I used a bunch of different amps and different cab combinations, my ears were initially shocked, but honestly I was quite surprised and kind of happy with the results. For follow pieces I used two different Fender Twins, and for forgetting I used an orange AD140 and a Mesa Boogie Stiletto, and I really liked how those tones came out. Though I was happy with the tones on the recording, they still weren't the sound that I had in my head. So I knew I had to buy something because I wanted my sound back. So 2 weeks later, I bought back the same Mesa Boogie Fillmore 50 that I returned to Long McQuaid, and since then it's been my main amp. When I plugged it in at Long McQuaid, I was so happy. I had found my sound again, and I knew I was gonna buy it and keep it forever this time. Once I got the Fillmore 50 back, it was time for me to overhaul my Kemper. I decided that I needed to approach my Kemper completely differently. So my first order of business was deleting hundreds of profiles. I didn't want to be overwhelmed by options anymore. I wanted just a few sounds that would cover all my bases. So I spent an afternoon going through all 500 sounds on my Kemper and trying to get it down to around 15. Of those sounds, I was looking for a Mesa Boogie Stiletto, an Orange AD140, and a professional profile of a Mesa Boogie Fillmore, plus a Fender or a Marshall or two. After many hours, I was finally able to do it. Well, kind of. I wasn't able to get it down to only 15, but I had significantly less than 500 sounds, so I was super happy. I thought all the sounds were highly usable and would be great for demos, but more importantly, they helped calm my option paralysis. I was really happy with these tones and they sounded awesome. Fast forward to 2023 and Daryl Saves Lives was back in the studio and I felt super prepared with my guitar tones. For the last 2 years, Nick and I had spent a ton of time balancing our guitar tones and really making them work in the context of our band. The tones that we got for this project were exactly the same tones that I had in my head. I was finally able to capture that sound and put it to tape. Once we were done recording guitar, we profiled my Kemper with all the tones that I used. So now I've cut down even more sounds on my Kemper because I use my Fillmore sounds, the stiletto sounds that I was using before, and sometimes some other Fender sounds. Since we made those profiles, I haven't worried about option paralysis ever. I'm so happy with them and I feel like I found a truly simple setup that works really great for my workflow. Though if I was able to use my tube amp at home, I would definitely record with that instead of my Kemper. I truly believe that you have to make your gear work for your needs. For me, it was getting rid of a lot of profiles on the Kemper to make it more usable. I'm glad that I've never sold my Kemper, though I don't use it as much as I used to. I still think it's an amazing tool for musicians. But now I want to hear from you. Is there a piece of gear that you loved initially, but had to change your approach to it? Do you like the unlimited options that modeling gives you, or do you just not like modeling in general? Let me know in the comments down below, and let's have a discussion. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. My goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of this year, and I really think we can do it. Once again, thanks for watching. I'm Kolji, and I'll see you in the next one.